Good morning, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. This is Gordon Grant. I am the past chair of the board of CUAHSI, and I'll be, in a sense, hosting today's membership meeting. Delighted that you could join us. This is the one annual event that we have where we all get together to talk about what CUAHSI has been doing, will be doing, and what it all means. And we'll have a few more people joining us as we go. We have a lot of items to cover today, and this is, you should be seeing the agenda on your screen in front of you. We're going to hear from some of our fellows, Chao Chen, who was our 2019 Hydroinformatics Fellow, and Austin Rainey, 2019 Summer Institute participant. We will be hearing from Jared Bales, the Executive Director of CUAHSI, about what some of the highlights from the past year have been. We will be hearing from Gretchen Miller, a member of the board who has been one of the leaders of the development of the new CUAHSI Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan. And then we will pivot to a business meeting. And depending on whether or not we'll have quorum, we have a little business to attend to. We'll hear our financial report from Audrey Sawyer, the treasurer. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll announce the results of the election and say goodbye to some of the board members who are stepping down. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jared Bales, Executive Director of CUAHSI, who will begin the 2019 highlights section. Jared.
Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome from snowy Boston. I hope it's as lovely where you are as it is here. So last year we tried something a little new, and we're going to repeat it again this year, and that is to hear from a couple of students or early career people who have taken advantage of some of our services. And so this year we started a new program, the Hydroinformatics Fellowship Program, which is designed to allow individuals to design essentially an app using CUAHSI services that we can then host on our website. And so we had two of those awarded. One of them was to Chao Chen, who is a postdoctoral fellow at Boise State, and so she's going to tell us about her work. So, Chao.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. My name is Chao, and I am currently postdoc researcher in geoscience department at Boise State University. So since I also earned my PhD degree from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So I have been learning CUAHSI quite a bit and actively joining different workshops. And I really appreciate CUAHSI can provide such great opportunity to both like students, but also for early career scientists. So I was working with two software engineers, Connor Allison, who currently a PhD student from University of Arizona, and also Chase from University of Nevada, Reno, and a software or data scientist, Ray from East Carolina University. So the tool is really aimed to improve the procedure of data uploading and downloading system processes. So as we know, like currently in HydroShare archiving system, we have tons of different data that are raw, which is really for being useful for different research purposes, but also it requires extra effort to do the data assurance, data quality assurance, and quality control. So me as a water scientist who collaborated with a data science, so Connor and Chase will now, like Ray was really developing the data detection algorithms, including the machine learning, and also the threshold defined outlier algorithms. And Connor and Chase, who are software engineers, really developed the front end and back end, and make the data transference, and also develop the 2D visualizations. So the end product of this program is really, we want to make a compatible data structure and format that can be compatible with current data quasi data sharing archiving system. Also, the tool will be have efficient online streaming processes. So the data users could be either using automatic filtering approach, such as the machine learning techniques, but also they can choose the manual approach. For example, they can set up like minimum and maximum threshold to filter out the outliers. So with the tool we developed, there are multiple different functions for data filtering, analysis, as well as the visualization. So currently the project has been almost, I would say 80% has been done. And so what we really want to do is set up a minimum data quality standard for both data upload and download processes, which would really facilitate the processes, especially for the small data users and providers, to speed up the data use and sharing cycles and frequencies. But also for me as a water science, I would really grateful to collaborate with different multidisciplinary scientists, such as software engineers and also data scientists. Yeah, through the collaboration, I think it really facilitates the communication between me and my colleagues, but also facilitate other collaboration in future as well. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Chao. So look for this as an app in HydroShare in the near future. And so, as you think about loading time series data into HydroShare, take a look at this app, as it perhaps might save you some time as you QA your data. So we're going to talk a little bit now about what CUAHSI's been doing in the last year. Our membership report is now live on our website for 2019 as of an hour or two ago. So take a look at that. We also will be printing some copies and distributing those as well. So as we've done in the past, we're going to ask you some questions and ask you to respond with some answers. And so you probably know the drill by now. So here's a question, and you hit the submit button, and then our trusty panel here will provide the results back to you. Next. And also, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box, and we will be monitoring that as well. A question or a comment, or just about anything. So next. All right. So here's our first question, and it has to do with Chao's presentation. Were you aware of the Hydroinformatics Innovation Fellowship?
Oh, am I supposed to answer right now? Quick poll.
Oh, no. Everybody, Chow, thank you. Everybody who is dialed in is submitting an answer. And you should be able to see, you should be able to submit yourself. Okay, so here's the response. About half of you were not aware of the fellowship, but about half of you were. So that's not bad in the first year. And in fact, 2% of you had students who applied. So that's good. Okay, next slide. So we've had some changes here at CUAHSI this year, as we do every year. We have a new controller, Heidi Happy, and she is generally pretty happy. Although she's been working pretty hard to kind of clean up some stuff and learn our systems and so on. She came to us from a small private college in western Massachusetts. And we also have Julia Masterman, who is our science education outreach coordinator. Julia will be handling the Summer Institute activities this year. She put together the membership report and has really jumped right in. And then Tom McDonald is a very recent hire. He is a DevOps engineer, and he is helping us maintain the stability of our data services. We've had a few people leave. Some went back to school. Some moved on to other jobs. And so, but it's always exciting to get new people in. So, next. And we have a couple of new members this year, University of Houston, so it's great to have them. CUAHSI also has a partnership with Michigan Tech University for a project that's like our Summer Institute, but we're doing it in El Salvador. And so we were able to get the university there to also be a member of CUAHSI. So we're really excited about that and excited about the partnership with Michigan Tech and working in El Salvador for the next 2 or 3 summers. Next. So for our water data services, it's been a good year for us. We've had a number of things happen. And so now we are getting more and more data into HydroShare and into HIS. We've had about 2,000 new data sets uploaded, and so we thank you for that. We thank you for using those services. 82 of those data sets are actually published with a DOI. We're growing the number of HydroShare users, and so we consider a person active if they've logged into HydroShare in the last 6 months, and so about 1,300 people have logged into HydroShare since June or so. We have been working really hard to make HydroShare stable and more user-friendly. And so, in fact, in the last year, we've had almost 2 upgrades per month. And thanks to our DevOps folks, we've been able to kind of hold the downtime while we do upgrades to less than a couple of minutes. One of the things that we've done in HydroShare is to bring in the legacy CZO data into our system. And so there was not really a good system for the CZOs to host all of their data. And so we built the capability within HydroShare to do that. And one of the cool things about it is that we added something called communities in HydroShare. So in the past, we had groups, right? So your research team could form a group and be a group within HydroShare. But what about in a situation like the CZOs where we have individual groups scattered around working on different sets of projects? So the CZO folks say, well, bring us something that we can be part of a community, but we can still maintain our identity as an individual CZO. And so we've added that capability, but that capability is open to anyone as well. We've also added a lot of new tools for computing within HydroShare, including Jupyter Hub capabilities. We now have MATLAB online. I think that may still be in beta, but you can come by our booth at AGU and see it. We've also developed the capability to subset the National Water Model and soon par flow. So take a CONUS level model and subset it, get the forcing data, and run the model on the subset of the CONUS scale model. So what would you like to see as part of our data services? What other things might we add that would add value to you? Don't be shy. Okay, so only, well, 20% of you said add more apps, but hopefully you will maybe try the apps and then you might see the value of them. Adding more data sources, tools for data analysis was quite popular, but in fact the most popular one was support for developing curriculum. And so that's an interesting result. We have an education standing committee, education outreach standing committee, and so there's an opportunity for you to work with that committee and provide us input on how we might be successful in doing that. Thank you for voting. So for our community services, that's sort of the other side of the house. And we have a number of our staff working on that. We've had a lot of great events this year. You know, we've touched just through workshops and meetings, CUAHSI-sponsored meetings and events like the Hydro Informatics Conference, 422 individual people. So those are people who have enrolled in CUAHSI activities. We had about 120 people at our informatics conference this year at BYU. We thank BYU for hosting us in a really nice facility. We provided 23 awards for students and early career folks. We've had 9 training courses. Most of those training courses are oversubscribed. They're pretty popular, and our new employee, Julia, is ready to go to snow school on Mount Washington in January, which also I think was oversubscribed. So yes, that's always a fun one. The CUAHSI Virtual University is growing. We had 9 modules this year. You know, look for calls to participate, to be going out soon. We've had 7 different cyber seminar series, as well as a couple of additional webinars. So these things come, you know, through our cooperative agreement with NSF, which provides us support for that. But these activities that we do are driven by input from you. And so, you know, we continue to want to hear from you. So one of our community activities is the Let's Talk About Water activity. And so we've been doing that for several years and handing out 6 or 7 grants per year to different places to host a Let's Talk About Water event. One of the ones this year was at West Virginia University, which had essentially a semester-long Let's Talk About Water event related to women and water issues. So that was pretty cool. So this year, the Let's Talk About Water folks are hosting an international film competition. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. You'll be seeing it more. We'll be distributing information about it, but I think the website is up now. So you know people in your sphere of influence that are interested in doing this, please let them know about this opportunity. The deadline is March 31 next year. So Gretchen, you're up.
Thank you, Jared. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Fantastic. So I want to take this opportunity to talk about something we've been working on for about the last 6 months. And this is the Strategic Plan for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. At our January meeting, the Board of Directors appointed an ad hoc committee to review the current state of CUAHSI's policies with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to draft a strategic plan to guide the organization going forward. The main drive for this was the renewal of our cooperative agreement with the National Science Foundation, and in that renewal, we agreed to produce a strategic plan for diversity by the end of 2019 and an implementation plan in 2020. So the committee was chaired by Jean Van Briesen. It included myself and those listed on the slide. You're being shown now there at the middle. Committee members were selected from the CUAHSI board and the membership at large, and it was based on their past organizational and professional experiences promoting diversity within the hydrologic sciences. As part of the committee's charge, we reviewed a range of diversity, equity, and inclusion, henceforth DEI policies. Then these policies were by leading geoscience professional and scholarly societies, for example, American Geophysical Union. Based on identifying the best practices within these, we developed a vision and a set of 6 strategic goals, which are described in our draft strategic plan. Our vision articulates CUAHSI's commitment to DEI, which we see as a way to support its basic mission and core values. We believe that a strong commitment to DEI will strengthen interdisciplinary collaboration among water scientists by promoting the acceptance of diverse ideas and perspectives in the hydrologic sciences. Do you want to go to the next slide, please? Okay, so to go through these strategic goals, first thing I want to note is the document is available for review at the link here. It is under, it's viewable in the library on the CUAHSI webpage. And if you have comments or want to volunteer for the implementation plan, you can email the address shown, dei@cuahsi.org. As far as the strategic goals of the 6, the first 2 we laid out were to deepen knowledge around DEI best practices within CUAHSI leadership and expand understanding of DEI best practices among CUAHSI staff and volunteers. We envision that these will be implemented through new training opportunities, as well as identification of a lead staff person for DEI issues and the creation of a standing committee from the board. Our next 3 goals look at how diversity may be enhanced with regard to the broader CUAHSI community. First, we recommended that membership be expanded to a broader range of academic institutions, as we were concerned that the requirement for member institutions to have graduate degree programs inadvertently sends a negative signal to undergraduate-focused and minority-serving institutions. The next goal was to develop new targeted programs to increase diversity within the CUAHSI community via mentoring and fellowship opportunities. And 5th, we wanted to raise awareness of DEI issues in the CUAHSI community via special sessions, workshops, and cyber seminars on topics such as bystander training or diverse aspects in hydrologic sciences, such as tribal water rights. Finally, our 6th goal was to increase inclusion and equity in CUAHSI programming. For this goal, we envisioned that implementation would involve taking steps to ensure that a wide range of CUAHSI members and volunteers are represented among speakers at CUAHSI events, and that CUAHSI fellowships are handled in a fair and equitable manner. Of course, to measure progress to these goals, we need metrics. We found that baseline data needed to be compiled to determine, to the extent possible, the past and current participation rates along lines of gender identity, country of origin, ethnicity, affiliated organizations, and career stage. These baseline metrics we're working on right now, and the implementation plan will describe how ongoing measurements would be conducted and what, if any, specific numerical goals would be appropriate. So the The CUAHSI Board of Directors is happy to present this plan to the membership and what really welcomes your thoughts and suggestions for both this and the implementation plan coming up. The plan, like I said earlier, is viewable in the library and the CUAHSI webpage under strategic plans, and comments may be emailed to, comments and questions can be emailed to dei@cuahsi.org. Finally, the board would also like to thank all the committee members for their really thoughtful input and dedicated service, especially with turning the plan around so quickly and getting a draft plan out to the membership by this meeting. With that, I conclude and I guess hand it back over to Jared.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gretchen. Yeah, these folks met weekly in the spring and early summer and really kind of worked on this, reached out to a lot of other organizations, and and so the plan is concise, but it has punch. So we're excited to work on the the implementation plan, and we really hope that you can join us in developing that. So one of the things that the CUAHSI can do, because we have a cooperative agreement with the National Science Foundation, is that it's pretty easy. It's easy for us. It may be a little more difficult for NSF and other people, but it's easy for us to get money from federal agencies into CUAHSI to do cool things because of the interagency agreement functionality. And so this just allows other federal agencies to pass money to NSF, who can then pass it on to us. And so one of our biggest activities, supported through that arrangement, is with the National Weather Service and NOAA at the National Water Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where we've been holding summer institutes for 5 years. It's a really exciting program, and we think we're in conversation with the Weather Service about some new things coming up in maybe 2020 or 2021. But to tell you about what happened in 2019 is Austin Rainey, who was there as a fellow this year and will be coming back next year as a student course coordinator. And so, Austin, really happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jared. Again, my name is Austin Rainey. I am a graduate student at the University of Alabama and a 2019 alumnus of the CUAHSI Summer Institute experience, or of the Summer Institute. This program, as many of you are probably familiar with, is a program that takes place in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in the summer over 7 weeks, where students come from around the country from multiple disciplines and work in team-based projects to work on themes towards improving the national water model. So in this year's Summer Institute, there were 18 students from 14 different institutions that participated in 3 different theme areas with 6 teams in total. The themes of the 2019 Summer Institute were coastal hydrologic coupling, hydroinformatics, and hydrological model scaling. Each of these themes is led by course coordinators from either government agencies such as the USGS or the Army Corps, or from institutions around the nation. CUAHSI does an excellent job of bringing the best people together to lead these themes and to guide students to success. Personally, this experience was the most beneficial experience I've had as a aspiring academic. It brought together a multidisciplinary environment where I met students from neighboring disciplines and forced me to work in a team environment, which I hadn't experienced in any of my academic career thus far. It's much different than just working in a group project that you might have done as a master's student or as an undergraduate student, you're living kind of in the same community together, and working every single day diligently on problems that you get to help think of, and you're guided by theme leaders, but a lot of it is also up to your own team's discretion, which I found really wonderful and unique. CUAHSI does an excellent job, as is already mentioned, about HydroShare, and the progress that's been made in that program over the past year. That HydroShare as well as GitHub were both huge proponents to this year's Summer Institute. All teams that wrote code for their projects posted all of their code on GitHub, so it's all open source and readily accessible by anyone who would like to go and get it, and also published resources to HydroShare, so others can go and collect their output data. One particular thing that I'd like to highlight about the Summer Institute that I found so important and so beneficial to me was weekly team presentations. So every single Friday, each team has to present a 5-minute presentation to their peers as well as the National Water Center staff. This is very different from just presenting at a conference or even at a symposium. You're surrounded by peers that are in your neighboring subdisciplines, and as well as experts who have been in the field for decades. So it's a way to really hone in on your presenting skills, as well as get good critiques and just be filled with knowledge that maybe a different discipline's paradigm lends its hand to, that you can pick up off of. I thought that was excellent. Other than that, the Summer Institute is fantastic. Students are forced to work, or not forced to work, work extremely hard over 7 weeks, but also students have a ton of fun. We traveled to 3 major southeastern cities, as well as a cave you can see on the right as well. We went and visited the Cahaba River, which is the most ecologically diverse river in the nation, and it's a great compromise between working really hard, but also being able to decompress and enjoy yourself and enjoy friends that you make for a lifetime. Enjoy colleagues and friends, and I don't know. I really can't speak highly enough about the program as a whole, and I'm very excited to rejoin as a course coordinator for the 2020 year. That's all I got.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, thanks so much, Austin. So, yeah, you know, we've started, I think it was last year, maybe the year before last, these folks have started having a Summer Institute alumni gathering at AGU, and so that just kind of tells you something about the community. So here's the latest, the last poll, and so if you could go ahead and vote on that. And while you're thinking, I'll just tell you a few more things about the Summer Institute. So we've had about 180 students go through that program so far, and from about, I think it's 77 different institutions. And so that's a pretty broad reach for the organization, and we're proud of that, and we hope that you are too, and that you will you know, encourage your students, if it's appropriate, to apply. So we are doing a pretty good job of getting the word out about this program. 82% of you are aware of it, and in fact, 16% of you have had students who have applied. And so that's good, and maybe you can help us with lessons learned from this program on how to get the word out about other activities. And one of those activities that we want to put on your calendar right now is the CUAHSI Biennial, which is coming up at the end of July. We hope you'll mark your calendar for that. We'll be at Shepherdstown, the National Conservation Training Center again this year. and we have a really great program, which in fact Gretchen is helping put together. So Gordon, I think that I'm done and we're back to you.
Thanks, Jared. Just as I'm sitting here listening to these highlights from the last year, I'm putting myself in the position of you as members and member organizations. I think what it speaks to is the maturation of CUAHSI as an institution, as a provider, and as a fixture. Sounds a little too static. It's because the essence of CUAHSI has always been that it responds to the community as the community has grown and as community challenges have come up. But CUAHSI as an institution really has matured over its time here, and that maturation really does, though, require an ongoing engagement with you, the members, to find out, what's working, what you need, how are the services that we are providing are working for you, and so this is an ongoing discussion that we need to have. I'd now like to turn to the business meeting. Basically, this is the one time of the year where we can actually act officially as a body, but that assumes that we have a quorum. And I am going to ask Adam Ward, our secretary, where we stand on quorum at the moment.
Yeah, not so fast there, Gordon. So we have 59 of our 124 members represented today, which puts us just slightly below 50%. So the only official business we had on deck today was approval of minutes, and so we're going to have to table that until our meeting next year, or conduct that vote electronically.
Okay, thank you. This was not entirely unanticipated, and we have had this experience in the past where we've had to roll over the approval of the minutes to the next time that we have full quorum. But thanks, Adam, for that. I'm now going to turn to Audrey Sawyer, our treasurer, for our 2019 financial report. Audrey, take it away. Thanks.
Thanks, Gordon. This slide here is showing our funding sources, and most of our funding comes from NSF, but through multiple awards. We're in year one of a renewal award on our one of our biggest grant, but we've aggressively gone after and received other NSF awards. And this slide just shows the dollar amount we've received in 2019 alone. Some additional diversification of funding comes from our Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation grant that you see there too. Next slide, please. This is our membership fund balance. We receive support not only from funders like NSF, but also through our member dues, which is a very tiny percentage of CUAHSI's income, but very important because this is unrestricted funds. Since a sort of lull in 2011, we've recovered and we've been relatively steady in our membership fund balance over the last few years. The little dip around 2018 was because we were spending money when the federal government was in shutdown mode. Next slide, please. A little bit more information on our membership funds. We've spent a little less than the $22,000 we received this year, so our balance will go up slightly to about $158,000 for fiscal year 2020. And this is just a little plug. Please make sure that you pay your dues for 2020, as this is extremely important to CUAHSI's operations, and talk with other institutions you may know who are not members about the importance of joining. As Jared mentioned, we have 2 new members this year. We welcomed in the University of Houston and El Salvador. Next slide, please. This is just breaking down our membership funds, the balance in a little more detail in terms of ins and outs. For the last several years, our income and expenses have been relatively stable, and that's allowed us to maintain a stable balance. Again, 2018 was a little bit of an odd year because of the federal shutdown. Next slide, please. How do we spend or use those membership funds? Most of the membership funds get used on things like meetings, which you see in orange there. The big 27% slice of the pie is our indirect allocations, which go, of course, to keeping the lights on and paying our invaluable staff. This is, again, the membership funds are a relatively small but important piece of our overall budget compared with other income streams like NSF. The membership funds, again, are unrestricted, so we can spend them according to our needs. And one example of this is that our membership funds partially support the social event that CUAHSI holds every year at AGU. This year, it'll be Tuesday, December 10th, and you'll hear more about that soon. At this point, I'd like to hand the mic over to Adam.
This is Gordon. I think if we're still roughly where we were, that Adam, are we any closer to quorum? I don't think so.
Nope, no late arrivals.
Okay, great. All right, so let's move past these slides. So hold it right here. This is the time we get to announce the election of our 2019 Board of Directors, who will serve as three-year terms starting the beginning of January. And I would like to congratulate our winners, Ati Bakar at Colorado State, and Jefferson, Jay Zarnetsky, Ashok Mishra, and pull it off my screen, our last, and Ann Nolan from University of Nevada, Reno. Thank you very much to all of the people who ran this year. We appreciate your willingness to serve, and we hope we can look to you again in the future. I would also like to thank our board members who are rolling off, in some cases after 6-year terms. Elizabeth Boyer, David Heineman, Mike Gusev, Holly Michael, and Al Valaki from University of Illinois is not really leaving us. He also won a 1-year term as a replacement by a board member who resigned in the past, so that in order to fill that term out and get us sort of back on schedule, Al graciously agreed to run and was reelected to a 1-year service. So he will actually be with us for the next year. But for all the other members of the board who are rolling off, CUAHSI really appreciates the time and effort and service that you've provided. We also want to thank Holly Barnard, who is rolling off as a rotator from the National Science Foundation as the program director of the Hydrologic Sciences program. She has been a stalwart champion of CUAHSI, has been engaged with us as we went through the renewal process, and we very much appreciate her time and effort. And we also welcome the new program manager, program director, Laura Laus, who you'll be hearing from at AGU. Next slide. I want to emphasize that the renewal period for membership is now open. As you heard from Audrey, membership is an important part of our operating funds, but more importantly, it's a way that we maintain our connection with universities, with the academic community, and we strongly encourage you to renew your membership early in the year. We know it invariably involves people having to go to deans and tap various sources to pay your membership dues. but we very much appreciate a timely attention to this. If you have any questions, you can talk with Ainsley Brown, and you'll see the address listed there, and you can log into your membership account or call us. We're very happy to help with this process. Next slide. Finally, we are, as usual, going to be present in a variety next week in San Francisco. As we have for the past 2 years, we're going to co-host and co-sponsor the AGU hydrology section meeting on Tuesday night. And so what's happening this year is a little bit different than what's happened in the past. All of the excuse me, all of the section meetings are being held and receptions are being held simultaneously in a near neighborhood vicinity, so that we know people have different allegiances to different sections, but we will be and we really encourage you to show up for there. That'll be in the Marriott Marquis, Salon number 5 on the lower floor. This event does require a ticket, and last time I looked, it was sold out. So if you don't have a ticket, want to go, you might want to find somebody who isn't going who has a ticket and affect a transfer. A non-ticket event that we also encourage you to attend is the CUAHSI Town Hall. We will meet with Laura Lautz, our new program director for the NSF hydrology program. That will be on Friday at 12:30 in Moscone West, room 2008. And finally, we encourage you to stop by the CUAHSI booth, number 213, in that wonderful maze of booths and information and exhibits that you see. We're delighted to be going back to San Francisco, and this being the centennial year for AGU, it's likely to be a very, very good meeting. Final slide. This is our current board of directors, showing our newly elected members as well. We encourage you to contact any member of the board. You can pigeonhole them at AGU, tell them what you're thinking, tell them of your concerns, tell them what you need. This is just another opportunity to promote a dialogue with the broader membership. Again, thanks to all who serve, and also thanks to our really outstanding CUAHSI staff. One of the experiences you get serving on the board is you really get to see just how effective CUAHSI staff, starting with the executive director on down, are in being able to make things happen. It's great to be part of such an organization. Final slide. Thank you to the membership for attending, for your attention, for your participation in the polls. Jared, do you have any final words of wisdom?
It looks like we have some questions, and so let's see. I can't read those from here anyway.
So the first one asks, what does authoritative data sources mean?
So that was in response to, I think, the poll about data services.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, so in that case, what we mean is that services that are stood up generally by federal organizations or similar. So the USGS Stream Gauge program network would be one example. We host also NASA LDAS data. So those are, a federated might be another word for that. The next question is what educational level? The student participants. So generally, it's graduate. Yeah, okay, so that question for Summer Institute, so it's definitely graduate. The CUAHSI board is having a conversation in 2020 about the role of undergraduate institutions in our organization, particularly in light of the DEI activities that we want to do. Okay, so the next question or comment is about sending students to the Summer Institute and their student salary. And so we are aware of that issue. So, for example, if you have a student who's on a student salary in the summer, you can't really pay their salary if they're off doing something else. And so we're aware of that. We know that it's a sacrifice on the part of the advisor to have their students gone during the summer. We are in some conversations with the Weather Service about ways that we might alleviate that burden on the students. Do we have any educational focus on HBCUs? And so we've had, Spelman College and Tuscaloosa, where the National Water Center is, we've had conversations over there. I've met with the president along with those Water Center staff. They and I have met with her. In general, that's been the extent of it. But we did have a comment from an HBCU about our DEI strategic plan and about the involvement of HBCUs in that implementation exercise, and so we do hope to do that. Again, HBCUs are generally undergraduate institutions, and so this conversation with the board about the involvement of undergraduate institutions in CUAHSI, I think, will be very interesting in the next year, and so we solicit your input on that. So thanks everyone for those questions. Those were great. I'm glad to know you were listening and thinking. So I think that's it, Gordon. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco next week if you're there, or if not, somewhere else. So thanks.
Thanks again. We're out.